We come again for another Daily Bread Bible study. Today we are looking at the book of Nahum, all 3 chapters, 1 through 3, for day 267, for Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020. The book of Nahum, it's one of my least favorite books of the Bible, I should say. It speaks as a book of vengeance and destruction and revenge upon the city of Nineveh, and rejoicing in seeing a reversal of fortunes, namely the destruction of Nineveh. It seems violent, harsh, and cruel. This may very well be what Jonah wants to see at the end of his book, when God instead promises mercy to Nineveh at that time. The sentiments here remind me of Psalm 137 in verse 8, O daughter Babylon, you devastator, happy shall they be who pay you back what you have done to us. Happy shall they be who take your little ones and dash them against the rock. Worst of all, Nahum is mainly written from the perspective of God. So I find this book hard to read. So I'm going to keep my comments kind of brief, and let's get into Nahum chapter 1. In Nahum 1 verse 1, an oracle concerning Nineveh, the book of vision of Nahum of Elkosh. A jealous and avenging God is the Lord is avenging and wrathful. The Lord takes vengeance on his adversaries and rages against his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger, but great in power. And the Lord will by no means clear the guilty. His way is the whirlwind and storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. Thus, God has sovereignty over clouds, seas, mountains, really the whole earth. Yet the people of Nineveh still pursue their own ways more than God's, and in fact oppress God's people, which is why in Nahum 1:9 it says, why do you plot against the Lord? In Nineveh, for these injustices, which I am assuming is referencing the exile of the conquered Israelites and also the siege of the city of Jerusalem, where death and destruction happened by the hands of the people of Nineveh or Assyria in general. Maybe even Babylon could be used here as well too, but the idea of the oppressors of the people of God. And so in Nineveh 1:14, the Lord has commanded concerning you, your name shall be perpetuated no longer. From the house of your gods I will cut off the carved image and the cast image. I will make your grave, for you are worthless. Look, on the mountains, the feet of the one who brings good tidings, who proclaims peace. Celebrate your festivals, O Judah, fulfill your vows, for never again shall the wicked invade you. They are utterly cut off. So the wicked are the Ninevites, the people of Nineveh. Nineveh is this representative city for the enemy. So in Nahum chapter 2, verse 1, a shatterer has come upon you. Guard the ramparts, watch the road, gird your loins, and collect all your strength. For the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob, as well as the majesty of Israel, though ravagers have ravaged them and ruined their branches. The idea, again, is that Jacob, or Judah, and Israel, the nation of Israel, have been destroyed and hurt by these actions of the people of Nineveh, and so thus a reckoning is coming. So the rest of the chapter 2 describes the destruction plan for Nineveh, including attacking warriors, fires, the city being plundered of silver and gold, a reference to conquering their lions, so maybe they are connected with the imagery of lions, and then the Lord claiming in Nehemiah 2:13, I am against you. Moving on to Nehemiah chapter 3, Nehemiah is happy to see the downfall of Nineveh, in verse 1, "Ah, the city of bloodshed, utterly deceitful, full of booty, no end to the plunder." The Lord lists some sins of the city, including debauchery, sorcery, enslaving the nations, and dashing infants' heads into pieces, which fits very well with the psalm I referenced at the beginning, Psalm 137, where the imagery is the Israelites dashing the heads of Babylonian babies against the stones. So I imagine that is probably something that happened to the Israelite children, and it's a terrible thing to contemplate. That would explain why they would be so upset and angry and quick to respond in violence. But continuing in chapter 3, the Lord then plans to humiliate Nineveh, and in verse 6, "I will throw filth at you and treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle." And then verse 19 says, "All who hear the news about you clap their hands over you, for who has ever escaped your endless cruelty?" I'm glad that Nineveh, or the book of Nahum, is short. Nineveh was oppressing God's people, but I only think violence begets more violence. This is why Jesus' statement here is so needed for me, and I'm going to close on his statement instead of this violence here. In Matthew 5:43 through 44, Jesus has a remedy for us here. He says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." May we remember that Jesus is the one who chose not the way of violence, but to die an unjust death on the cross, one at the hands of his own corrupt leaders in his day and time within the Jewish community, and also at the hands of an oppressive government called the Romans. May we remember that Jesus died very much a death because his ways were radical among the nations, and that he was calling for people not to respond in hatred, but to respond with prayers, peace, and living something different. So may you be encouraged and promoted to live something different and to stand for something that is not violence or retribution or destruction.